we are welcoming another Englishman to La Liga. Marcus Rashford will be a Barcelona player. Wanted to get your take on this. That Sports saying that Rashford is ready for the tour. But will he be able to play? Will he be registered in time, Sid?
Well, at the moment he can't be. But I think one of the things that's important to point out now is the date is, what are we, 23rd of July? I must confess I honestly don't know the date. I think it's the 22nd or the 23rd of July. There's a 22nd, thank you. Actually, it's just past midnight, so it's now the 23rd, so I'm going to claim that one for myself there. Yeah. I mean, literally, just now. I think, look, at the moment he can't be registered, but it's early. It's more than a month to go till the end of the window. Admittedly, it's less than a month to go till the start of the season. So at the moment, they can't do so. There are a number of things that can change that financial situation for Barcelona. One of them is the arrival of the money from the VIP boxes. The other, of course, is the departure of other players. And then there's the question mark over what they do with Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Now, if ter Stegen was to go, that releases a huge amount of money into the financial fair play pot. If he isn't to go and he goes under the knife and has this operation, that would release, according to Federation rules, the possibility of them using 80% of his salary to pay for another player. Now, it's important to note that it's to pay for another player. So it could go to one player. It needn't necessarily go to Rashford, and it might not go to Rashford because, of course, they've also signed a goalkeeper in Joan Garcia, who also, at the moment, cannot be registered. And so the short answer to your question is he going to be registered now? No. Will he be registered by the end of the window? Well, we've been here before. And so we can be optimistic about it. And personally, I suspect this summer will be slightly different in terms of the management of this. This is not a huge signing in terms of the impact it makes in the transfer fee. So that helps, of course, although the salary is reasonably high. So I think maybe not by the start of the season, but I think by the end of the transfer window, so in other words, when August turns into September, I think Rashford will be available for Barcelona.
What are your thoughts on this move, Ian?
Well, they're going to need some financial gymnastics, as Sid has explained. They always seem to be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat somewhere. We had the business with Dani Olmo and other players in previous seasons as well. It's a little bit of an annual farce now with Barcelona that this goes on. But you have to guess that in the end, Rashford will become available to play, whether it's 2 weeks into the season, 3 weeks into the season, not quite sure. Does he get in the team? Probably not, does he? With Lamine Yamal, Dani Olmo, Rafinha playing behind Lewandowski. That's what you think the lineup would be. But I guess it does open the option of Rafinha maybe moving to number 10 and Rashford playing out on the left-hand side. Occasionally, it's another option. I mean, from his point of view, he did okay at Aston Villa, but there are still a lot of question marks and a lot of baggage and a lot of, discussion about what Rashford is and what he can still do. This is a great move for him. Whether it's a great move for Barcelona, we're about to find out.
Ali, your take on it?
Well, first of all, if whoever's putting this graphic, have a word with yourself. Marcus Rashford is not starting for Barcelona. He's not. Barcelona don't need Marcus Rashford. Now, every part of my body, every cell in my body, when all this conversation came about Marcus Rashford, said, no. You don't need this if you're Barcelona. You don't need this if you're Hansi Flick. But I can be positive.
Oh.
And so I will be. If they get nothing from Marcus Rashford, they're still going to be productive. They're still going to score goals consistently. This team will continue to score goals, regardless of what they get or don't get from Marcus Rashford. If they get anything from Marcus Rashford, if they get anything near his best, he gives them something different. He gives them a change of pace that can trouble defenders in La Liga. He gives them a more vertical player, a player that can get out in transition, which we saw with Hansi Flick is something that Barcelona can do very well. And how does he get close to his best? And this is when I really have to be positive and optimistic. He knows he's coming to the end of the big-time opportunities for him. This is it. It's Barcelona. And he's away from the pressures, I suppose, or the scrutiny of and what had become a toxic environment in the Premier League for him, especially at Manchester United. And he's going to a place in which, like I said before, whether he scores or doesn't score, it's not going to really matter. Barcelona will continue to score goals. So the expectations will not be on him. So if you get any productivity from him, then it's a gain for Barcelona. from that point of view, it makes sense. Regardless, still, if I were making decisions for this club, I would not touch Marcus Rashford.
Okay, but they have. Mario Suarez was saying that it's a better option in this aspect than Nico Williams because he can play as a number 9 and on the left. Something in that for you?
Given the choice between the two, is Nico Williams all day, every single day. We know what Nico Williams can do in Spanish football. I think he's a proven quantity, whereas we've had flashes from Marcus Rashford. Those flashes were a few years ago, and ever since that, there's been no real consistency. Now, to Ali's point, maybe Marcus Rashford all of a sudden wakes up in Barcelona and realizes, I really am drinking in last chance saloon here. If this doesn't work out for me, there goes the opportunities to play big club football again, because I don't think anybody touches him. Never mind getting the kind of wages that he continues to command. And if he does, and he rediscovers that form that we saw post the World Cup in 2022, then Barcelona benefits. As we said, I still don't think Marcus Rashford starts, to Ali's point. I agree. He does give Hansi Flick an option if he wants to rotate, if he wants to rest players, whatever, cover for injuries, whatever it may be. But as of right now, he is not guaranteed to be in that starting 11. It gives Flick options. If Rashford gets a chance, surely he's got to know he has to take it.
Look, I think if you're Hansi Flick and you're Barcelona, you're probably thinking, I'm going to get about 3 or 4 really good months out of Marcus Rashford. This is what I think I can get from him. And if indeed I get really good 3-4 months out of him, maybe that elevates him as a player, elevates his feelings, elevates, I don't know, self-esteem. I have no idea. With Marcus Rashford, we have no idea. This is a shot in the dark if you're Barcelona, but it's a shot in the dark that if it works, it's great. And if it doesn't work, what's the worst thing that can happen? He's just going to sit on the bench. Now, some would argue, is he going to influence some of the younger guys in that team? I don't know that that's quite the case. And if Hansi Flick feels that that's a problem, he'll put him to the side. So there's a lot to gain here if you're Barcelona, so long as Marcus Rashford finds that level of play. And I know it's going to be a short period of time because we know this from Marcus Rashford. We know that it won't be for the next couple of years that this is going to work out. This is going to be for a short period of time. And if it is for a short period of time and he's productive, then Barcelona wins.
Would Marcus Rashford still be a Barcelona player if they weren't in the financial situation they are, Sid?
Well, look, I mean, you know, the name that came up just then was Nico Williams. And we know, of course, that there are a number of elements to kind of factor into the equation when you talk about why Nico Williams didn't eventually go to Barcelona. But fundamentally, it came down to an inability of Barcelona to guarantee to him that they would get him registered. So if your starting point is, if there's no financial difficulties at all at Barcelona, and I think we probably have to distinguish between financial difficulties in terms of them actually doing the things they want to do and financial difficulties in terms of the regulations in financial fair play. If none of those exist, does Rashford turn up? No, because Nico Williams has already turned up. So that's just not the case. Now, at the end of this season, and in terms of that option to buy Marcus Rashford, that I think will depend very heavily on what he does this year, but also it will depend on what position Barcelona believe they're in financially. So I think, to speak to Ali's point about what's the worst that can possibly happen, the worst that can possibly happen, I suppose, is that he doesn't have much of an impact, and at the end of the year, Barcelona say to Manchester United, here you go, here's Rashford back. And so in that sense, this is a deal that, yes, it's true they've got to take on his salary. And it's true that his salary is quite large. And it's true that right now they can't confront that financially. But I think by the end of August they will be able to. And so in a way, there's not a huge amount for them to lose. They get a versatile player who plays in all of the front positions in theory. They get someone who allows them to rotate some of the other players. And in particular, Robert Lewandowski, who you wonder about his capacity to continue scoring goals all season, another year on. And so I think that's quite important. And then I think as well that optimism that Ali was talking about, that idea that there's a big part of Marcus Rashford, that this is about offering him a fresh start, offering him, if you like, a kind of an emotional or a psychological clean slate and a different type of football. And it's a wonderful opportunity for him. And I personally would really like to see him do really well. And I'd really like to see a glimpse of the Marcus Rashford we saw from a couple of years ago. And I just wonder if this is actually the right environment for him. So yeah, without the financial problems, he might not be there, but maybe he realises that as well, and maybe that is the thing that says, okay, this is it. This is the moment to really, really make the most of it. One other brief point. Ali mentioned the toxicity. I suppose this is where I, as a journalist, hold up my hand on behalf of the industry that I work in and say quite a lot of the toxic noise around Rashford is the fault of people like me, or is the fault of our industry. And I wonder if there might be a bit of him that thinks, you know what, I want out of there. And I want to be in a different environment where I can feel more at ease and hopefully perform to a higher level.
There are reports that there have been a major breakthrough in talks this evening, so we're welcoming in Ian Darke to talk more about this. And let's say this does go ahead, Ian. What's your take on the move?
I think it's a good move because Arsenal have been crying out for a goal-scoring number 9. We don't know yet whether Gyökeres can do in England. He did it at Coventry in the Championship. Whether he can do in the Premier League what he's been doing for Sporting Lisbon. But let's face it, what he's been doing for Sporting Lisbon has been pretty sensational over quite a long period now. So Arsenal have looked at it, they've thought about it, and this is the target that they've gone for. So I think the deal's going to happen. I think they're just talking about the terms, the way it's going to be paid, the possible add-ons, that sort of thing, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. So I think Gyökeres is going to be an Arsenal player, and it will be fascinating to see how he goes in the Premier League.
Is that the final piece, Shaka, that Arsenal need to win the title?
It's a much needed, long overdue piece. To Ian's point, we still have to wait to see exactly how Viktor Gyökeres settles into the Premier League. Everything we've seen, certainly at Sporting, suggests, as Ian says, suggests that he should provide goals. The one thing, and to your question about the final piece, that I feel Arsenal have been missing for the last few years is that out-and-out goal scorer, that target man up front. If Gyökeres can do that, it certainly makes Arsenal a whole lot better. Making Arsenal better, while that's good in a vacuum, so has so many other clubs in the Premier League.
A lot of draws last season, Ale. That's what we're looking at here on this graphic. Had they had that striker, that target man up front, could that have changed for them and given them 3 points in some of these games?
Well, yes. Now, we're assuming that in these games they didn't come from behind or they didn't score a late goal in order to tie it up. But I get your point. I understand where you're coming from with this. And what I would say is, if Arsenal's expectations are, and as it should be, to win the Premier League, then what's it going to take for Viktor Gyökeres? What sort of productivity do we need to have from this player in order for Arsenal to be indeed in this title race? Well, you look at Liverpool, and you look at Manchester City, and you look at Mohamed Salah, and you go to Erling Haaland, and you're looking at somewhere around 40 goals a season in all competitions. Now, he's coming from scoring 54 in Sporting. I'm not going to devalue the importance of scoring 54 goals because that's a lot of goals. That is a bunch of goals. Having said that, we need to assume that it's going to be more difficult for him in the Premier League, and that his level of productivity and consistency needs to be at the level of Salah and Erling Haaland. Now, that's historic levels, but that's what it's going to take for Arsenal to turn those games that you mentioned, those draws, into wins, and to turn those single points into 3 points, and to actually be there in the end where they think they should be. That's a big question. It's also a little bit concerning for me. All we know from Viktor Gyökeres, if we're really honest with ourselves, because none of us are sitting back watching the Portuguese league every weekend. We're not doing it, okay? And that's the truth, right? And anybody that tells you, no, I'm all about it. Oh, I know what's happening between Sporting and Gil Vicente. Yeah, no, you don't. So what we know is what we have seen in Champions League from Viktor Gyökeres. And we have the lasting image of how silly he made Manchester City look. And that was impressive. But then you ask yourself the question, well, who didn't make Manchester City look silly last season defensively? And so if that's the standard, then we have to be careful that that's the expectation we have for this player, because it is also true that in the defining moments of Champions League competition for Sporting, he was not first choice. Konrad Harder was. Again, since I'm not watching the Portuguese league every weekend, I cannot tell you how good Konrad Harder is or isn't. But I can tell you that if my guy, Viktor Gyökeres, is the difference maker, then how come he's not starting that first game against Borussia Dortmund in the defining stages of this competition? And it was like that for the last few matches in the group phase as well. Or not group phase, league phase. Maybe some injury concerns, maybe some issues here and there. I'm not going to speculate. But it would be nice to have the conversation. I don't have access to Rui Borges, the manager of Sporting, and ask him the question, how come he wasn't playing in these games? Because that is something that would tell us a lot about Viktor Gyökeres and what his potential actually is with Arsenal.
What do you think, Ian, on him being that missing piece for Arsenal?
Well, I think he's got to have a better goal-scoring return, hasn't he? I think you put up some figures there with Havertz as the leading goal scorer, but I think he was only single figures in the Premier League. So Arsenal had the best defence in the Premier League last season, and yet they finished 10 points behind Liverpool, who won the championship. So it's easy to see where the problems were. I mean, we just don't know. It is a question mark, as Xhaka and Ali are saying. It's a question mark about whether he's going to be able to do it in the Premier League. Not everybody can, as we've seen from Darwin Núñez, who's recently come from Portugal. But my guess is, having seen a bit of Gyökeres, he's had a long apprenticeship, as a player. He's not an overnight sensation. He's learned his trade at a lot of smaller clubs. He knows about the physicality in English football because he played in the Championship for Coventry. I think he's going to come off, and I think Arsenal have done their homework, and they think he's going to come off. And you look at the kind of team they're going to have out there. They're going to have Madueke, who could be dangerous from either wing, although a little inconsistent. Saka, Gyökeres, Zubimendi, Odegaard, and Rice in midfield. It looks a pretty tasty outfit, doesn't it, if the Gyökeres signing works?
Yeah, let's obviously, Ian, you've just touched there on those transfers. Let's talk about Arsenal's transfer business so far. It sounds as though you think that they could be the extra missing pieces as well as Gyökeres for this season.
Well, they've got a big gap to bridge, I think, to Liverpool, who, as you all know, have spent very big themselves. So, they're not complacent. They've restocked pretty spectacularly, as have Manchester City and Chelsea. So it's been a mad, crazy summer in the transfer market with over £1 billion being spent. I think we're going to have a heck of a title race this season. But, Arsenal have been runners-up 3 times running. They're going to be in that title race. Whether they can win it, well, we're going to have to wait and see for that.
Yeah, you wonder how confident Mikel Arteta himself is about whether Arsenal can win the title this season, because we've been hearing from the Arsenal manager on how many clubs are actually in the title race this season. And this is what he had to say. The thing is, there are another 6, 7, 8 clubs in the league that have the right ingredients to win, and there is only going to be one winner. So we have to focus a lot on the things that we can control, that we can do to achieve what we want at the end of the season. 9 clubs have what it takes. Is he already diluting expectations for Arsenal here?
Either that or he's contradicting expectations on everybody else. Let's be honest. And while Mikel Arteta is free to say whatever he wants and how he feels, and clearly, as a manager, you don't downplay the threat of anybody else. You take nobody for granted. That's just kind of standard. And Arteta says what he says, but I am fairly confident. You poll 100 football fans, 100 people like us who give opinions, it's going to come down to 3 clubs: Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City. There may be a couple who may offer Chelsea, but I'm not sure how serious they'll be in that. So the truth is, it's one of 3, regardless of what Mikel Arteta may feel about the threat of Brighton and Nottingham Forest.
Why is he saying this, Ale?
Lies! Lies upon lies. Lies, I tell you. It's deflecting attention away from the expectations that are going to be in Arsenal, whether he likes it or not. Pay attention to Aston Villa. Pay attention to Brighton. What? Look. Realistically speaking, as Xhaka just mentioned, this is indeed a 3-horse race. I saw a segment from the show while I was on vacation, because that's my commitment to ESPN FC. I saw a segment in which I believe Mark Ogden was trying to push the idea that this would be the closest or most competitive title race in years because there would be 3 and at least 4 teams. And even squeezing 4 into that conversation was difficult to do for Mark. In fact, I think that Dan, who was hosting the show that day, called him a liar. He said, I don't believe you. You were forced to write this by the editors of your whatever, the website, right? And that's us trying to squeeze, or not us, Mark, squeeze 4 teams into this conversation. 9? Are you joking?
I would love to know who he thinks the 9 are.
Well, we just put a list of 10 of the odds to win, and that included Aston Villa, Brighton, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, and I'm just saying,
Goodness me.
it's lies. It's Captain Deflecto. It's pay attention to those guys. Don't pay attention to us. It's not. Don't put this sort of pressure already on us.
Is that what it is, Ian? Is it Arteta?
Manchester United in that 10?
Well, I'm just saying.
Goodness
But
me.
does this tell us, Ian, that Arteta's already feeling the pressure with the money that's spent and potentially could be spent if Gyökeres comes in? Is this showing us that he's already feeling the pressure?
Well, I mean, yeah, they're trying to lower expectations, but you can't do that at a club like Arsenal because the expectations, and they have been since he took over, are absolutely huge. I'm trying to think, though, who the 9 could be. Like the guys, I mean, we haven't mentioned, what about Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United, the notable flops from last season. You probably have to think about Crystal Palace, who, if they kept, imagine that they kept Mateta, Eze, Gehi and Adam Wharton, if there's going to be a surprise package, not in the title race, but to go very well next season, it might be them.
So Shaka just said 3, maybe 4. Who really is for you, Ian, in the title race next season?
I think, obviously, Liverpool, who'll be favourites, and rightly so. Manchester City will bounce back, not least because they've got Rodri and the new additions, and I think they've got the eye of the tiger about restating their case. Obviously, Arsenal as well. And I would include Chelsea because if they've won this World Club Championship in the summer and made themselves £80 million or whatever it was, if they're not title contenders and they're trying to tell us already that maybe they're not, well, was it only about the money? If they're the World Club champions, they're in the English title race.